Hello, and welcome to another another week of. Wow, that'll teach me to eat almonds right before we go live. What are we doing? Live streaming Gotham Sound with Glenn Sanders.
Live from New York, it's Tuesday afternoon.
That's right. How you doing, Glenn?
I'm good. How are you?
All right. Glenn brought a bunch of gear to talk about, but before we get into the gear, you and I have become friends 15 years now.
It's been a while.
And I don't know, I feel like I want to ask you some questions. I want you to open up a little bit to me.
I'll do the best I can.
All right. Breathe in deep through your nose. All right. All right. We're getting there.
I'll let it out.
All right. I'm going to start from the very beginning.
Once upon a time.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in New Jersey, North Jersey, and basically led a relatively uneventful life and went to college in New Jersey as well, to a county college where I took engineering.
How come you didn't go out of state for college?
I wasn't exactly what you call someone who liked school very much. I mean, I liked college because I got to take engineering courses and I was interested in them.
Why were you interested?
Well, I always felt that electronics was what I wanted to do. Electronics is to me, fascinating because things happen without anything physical being involved. I mean, it's not like a mechanical device. It's something where, you've got this box or you've got something and you put energy in one side and out the other side you see flashing lights or you see something happening based on electricity. And I always thought that was pretty fascinating.
And how old were you when you first started experimenting with electronics?
Man, probably 8 years old, 9 years old, something like that.
And were you the kid that took apart stuff in the house?
I took most everything apart, yeah.
I was that way too.
Luckily, it got back together and still worked.
Most of my shit didn't get back together.
Well, that explains a lot.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it explains a whole lot. No, I remember a particular incident with a rotary telephone that did not end well, and that phone it's like in phone heaven right now.
Did you get a beaten?
I did not get a beaten, but there are crimes against phones that I'm guilty of.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I share that same fascination. For me, there was also an element, and I wonder if this is true for you, of control in a way. Like you could do all kinds of experiment, but at the end of the day, something predictable would happen.
Well, I think sometimes you try to do something and you have a goal, and sometimes that goal is realized and other times it's not. It's like any experiment, I guess, where you either achieve what you want to achieve, or you fail, or you achieve something totally unexpected that leads you off in a different direction.
Yeah.
And I don't know that isn't exactly true today. I mean, there are times when, I sit in front of my bench with all kinds of RF stuff and, all kinds of electronics, and I'm going through it, and I have an idea of what I'm trying to do. And, these days the results are more expected rather than unexpected, but you just try to work towards some goal, and if you can get there and have it work, you're doing okay.
Do you feel more comfortable working in hardware or software?
These days hardware, only because I used to write software. I used to write a lot of software, and I realized that I was not as good at it as other people. I mean, I wasn't terrible. I wrote, I guess the last thing that I wrote was our Mix 8 and Mix 12 panels. And before that I wrote a good chunk of the Diva 2. I wrote the timecode reader generator. I wrote the whole LCD display. I did the whole the graphical user interface on that. So I did a lot of software, and that's how I started. I started doing hardware and software, and just figured or decided that, I can't do it all. And, after I met Howie Stark, who was just incredible at software, I just said, you know what, this is what you do. I'll handle all the mechanical designing. I'll handle all the analog designing. You handle all the digital designs, and you handle all the software. And
Like when you would see Howie's code, you would be blown away by how efficient and elegant it would be, or?
well, I know it's efficient. I know it's elegant. As far as me looking at it, Howie writes in C. I always wrote in assembly language, and those are two very different things.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't understand his code. It's like someone speaking to me in French or Spanish. I'm just not going to really understand it. It's just different.
Or really be able to appreciate the elegance involved.
Well, I always appreciate it because I can always see the end results, and the end results are, as Mr. Trump would say, spectacular.
Are you a Trump supporter?
Am I a Trump supporter? Wow, that's not a question I would expect to be asked.
I got more.
Oh, okay. I mean, the answer to that is no. I think he's a little off the deep end.
But you didn't immediately say no.
He's intriguing, isn't he? However, I don't think he has a chance to become president, and I think that would probably not be a good thing. But that's as far as we should probably go with that. But there's no doubt the man is absolutely successful, charismatic. There's a lot there that's intriguing, but the downside, I think, is kind of a little too much.
Is he? I mean, I don't know. This goes to some core questions I have. Like, what is success for you?
What is success for me? I guess at the end of the day, it's being able to go home knowing I got something done. Maybe having someone tell me how much they liked my product, or how they were able to do something with it that they couldn't normally do, how it impressed their client. If someone calls me and tells me that, that's success. I mean, even 2 days ago, someone on I think it was JW Sound, wrote a thank you to us for one of our new products, the RX200, and to me, that's good. That's success. I mean, the financial stuff is, a measure of success as well, but ultimately, you got to make people happy, and you have to provide them with innovative things that truly change what they do and how they do it, and make them look better to their customers. If I can do all that, that's a pretty good day.
Yeah. How did you get influenced to like electronics?
Well,
what did your father?
My father was a amateur radio operator, and I kind of grew up around that, and just naturally, thought electronics was interesting. I mean, he was always doing things with vacuum tubes and what have you, because it was the late 60s, early 70s, and luckily I don't want to say I missed all that, because I think but I didn't really mess around with that. I mean, I kind of got into electronics when transistors ruled the day and chips were just starting to come out.
Was that like a point of conflict for you two? Like, would he say things like, back in my day?
No, not at all.
Or you kids don't know how good you have it?
No, he wasn't. My dad wasn't really interested in, solid state electronics. I mean, because it really wasn't. It wasn't to the point where he could use it so much in what he did. I mean, his main thing was, actually my dad was a pilot. I mean, my dad's still around, but my dad flew as an instructor for like 40 years. So that became his main hobby after ham radio.
He got written about in the New York Times, right?
He did, yeah.
Do you think your dad is successful?
I think so. I mean, what's a measure of success for anybody?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is he happy? I think, he's happy, and, what is success?
Yeah.
What is success for you?
No, I think about this all the time. I think it is something about creating. I think it's creating something meaningful. I think it's being a good parent. As part of it, if you have kids.
Right. I mean, something that I look for these days is for someone to look at a design of mine and say that's aesthetically pleasing. That's pretty. It's well thought out. That makes me happy. Yeah. I think as I move forward with designing things, I think I get a little bit more artistic and a little better at putting things together that have a good look and feel. And that's really, really important to me.
Do you feel like that's always been the case with your products? Is this a new shift towards aesthetics?
No, it's not new. It's just the natural progression of getting better at it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. I mean, my first products were pretty simple, but frankly, they could be simple. Yeah. Because back in the day, people didn't care so much about looks; they cared about functionality. Especially when you're building a product that does things that are new and unique. As long as it's functional, no one's going to argue with the fact that it does something that either makes them happy or makes them money or makes them look good to somebody else or all of the above. So,
what? I'm just trying to get a sense of what it was like growing up, suburban North Jersey.
Okay.
Your dad flies planes and teaches people how to fly.
Yes.
Do you think he was a good teacher?
I think he was an excellent teacher.
Good. Did he ever take you up in the plane?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What was that like? That must have been amazing.
Well, I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's flying around in a 2-seat or 4-seat Cessna.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it. I mean, we didn't go that often. I mean, it was, I found it to be really neat. But strangely enough, I'm someone that likes to keep my feet on the ground. So, as much as possible. I mean, even flying commercially, I'm not crazy about it. Just because there's a feeling of being out of control.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything happens, the only thing you're doing is sitting there and waiting for for it to end.
Yeah,
hopefully
sure.
in a good way.
Yeah.
So,
Hopefully quickly.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Uh-huh.
So, how about those Yankees? Or the Mets?
No, I think that's interesting. How about the Mets?
How about the Mets? How about those
doing pretty
Mets?
good.
Don't break a leg.
So, what was it? So tell me what it was like growing up in suburban New Jersey.
What it was like?
Were your friends all into electronics?
No, not particularly. I mean, it was pretty uneventful. I was pretty happy doing what I was doing, and just being a kid, and just, I don't know where you're.
Do you remember the first thing that you blew up?
Blew up.
Hardware-wise?
Well, there were so many.
Uh-huh.
Nothing comes to mind as being particularly
dangerous.
Yeah. No,
Did you get into trouble a lot as a kid?
I don't think so. No more than other kids, really.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right, so college in Jersey.
College in Jersey.
And you graduate college and you start applying for jobs. What happened after that?
It didn't really work that way.
Uh-huh.
I mean, basically, when I was at the point of graduating, I got a job in New York City at a place called Broadway Video.
Right out of college?
Right, barely out of college. Not really out of college, kind of in college.
And Broadway Video is Lorne Michaels'
That is correct.
place. Was it always Lorne Michaels' place?
Yes, it was. I believe he started it.
So that must have been a great.
It was really cool because I mean that's where I learned all about television and videotape and audio.
And you're
and
21,
time code.
22?
Yeah, 21 basically.
Wow.
Yeah. So I worked there for about 5 years and
Lived with your folks?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I worked there for about 5 years and learned the ropes, as it were, which I think was a, kind of a college education in itself for 4 or 5 years. And then when I was there, I basically decided that, there was a product I was going to build, and I built it, and actually it was pretty darn successful, and that's how I started the company.
And that was Zaxcom's first product.
Zaxcom's first product.
What
yeah.
was it?
It was a digital time-based corrector remote control. See, the thing about that is that in the art of television editing, there was something called a time-based corrector. And that thing was something that would control the it would stabilize the playback of analog video off of a tape so that it eliminated the timing nuances that were caused by the mechanical process. So it was an electronic stabilization, but it had controls for video gain, video setup, chroma level, and mostly U color control. And there was no way to memorize that between different tapes. So we had these big 1-inch tape machines that everyone had at the time, and I watched people with stacks of reels of videotape in front of these machines, and they were taking elements off of the tapes, and a tape operator would be swapping those tapes around almost every 5 minutes. And I decided that
because they're editing something together, and they need to pull
they needed
from
elements from different
tapes.
tapes, and every time they swapped the tapes, they had to reset up the time-based corrector. And that, in combination with the fact that they wanted control of the time-based corrector from the editing room, which was in a separate room, I thought to myself, wow, I can make a digital time-based corrector control, because they had analog ones that were just pots on a panel, and I can memorize the settings and allow it to be remote controlled, and then put together a system that allowed a pool of machines to be controlled from different editing rooms. And that was my first product.
Wow.
So
but this is not something that they would teach to even third year or fourth year level undergrad in electronics.
Well, no, I saw the need for a product, and I came up with the concept of doing it, and I did it.
Yeah, all right.
So, it was kind of, sometimes you have to put together all the pieces. I mean, it's like a puzzle. You've got clues of what makes a product. It's like, who's wasting time, who's doing it inefficiently, who could do it better, who can do it faster, so, and that goes to today, where I look at, what we do in production sound, and I come up with the concepts for, what would make it easier or better for someone to do something. What's wrong with today's production sound? That's what I look at. I mean, whether it's limiter distortion, whether it's remote control of transmitters, whether it's lost audio on transmission because of dropouts or interference, there's a lot of things that people put up with because they feel that there's nothing they can do about it. Well, I can do something about it. And, if you're going to go out there and you're going to buy an FM wireless mic that basically hasn't really changed in any significant way over the last 30 years.
At least, yeah.
So if you're going to buy a companded FM wireless, maybe it's been repackaged, but if you're going to do that, what are the results you're going to get? Those results are basically going to be pretty similar to what they were 20 years ago.
Right.
Where with what we do, I've gone out and, we've done digital modulation, we've done recording in the transmitters, we've done never clip, which we'll talk about. But these are all things that, beyond any doubt, improve the audio quality, improve the control, improve the ability to record audio without sweating, quote unquote. It's funny. Jan McLaughlin, she says to me often that Zaxcom Wireless is her antiperspirant, because she doesn't have to worry that she's going to go out and do a job, and because of no fault of her own, her wireless microphones are not going to work. That she's always going to have something. So, again, these, getting back to the original question, these are the things that, I look for in order to try to build a product, things that we can improve upon and change and innovate. If we can't be innovative, then I should go out and do something else.
Right. Fair enough. Well, let's talk about what some of the wireless are. I mean, first of all, I think we should address some questions that are coming up. Let's see. All right. When will the Nomad Touch ship? From Bradley Bernard.
Nomad Touch is, I think we have some out there with beta testers, and I think that the actual end users will get them quite soon. I mean, we're really just about there. Yeah.
Good. All right.
So, I mean, that's not a question that I asked at the factory, so I don't have the exact answer. But yeah.
It's soon.
It's soon, yeah.
All right. So let's talk about some of the stuff that you brought. How do these products answer some of the issues that you were talking about in terms of solving people's problems? Right.
Well, just to go over some of the things that we do that are but are very, very unique and innovative. Some of the things we do are, for lack of a better word, just very unique to us. I mean, for instance, our transmitters, all of our wireless transmitters have internal recording.
Sorry.
So if you have one of our transmitters, and here's this guy over here. Mm-hmm. This is TRX LA 2.5. This guy transmits digital audio. This guy records. This guy has something called Power Roll. This guy has an operating system called MARF, which is Mobile Audio Recording Format. Mm-hmm. This transmitter has Never Clip. And just to rattle off these things, I don't think does them justice. So internal recording on all the transmitters, as you can imagine, is the anti-perspiration factor. Uh-huh. Because if you could take a transmitter and put it on someone and have internal recording, then no matter what might happen, whether it be interference, whether it be anything that would stop the signal from getting to point A, point B, distance problems, whatever it is, you have a copy in the transmitter.
And that's something that you guys hold a patent on, is that right?
We hold multiple patents on recording transmitters, yes. Uh-huh. So, no matter how many transmitters you have, part of what we've done is we've put receivers into these, and the receiver receives something we have called Zaxnet. Mm-hmm. Zaxnet is a 2.4 gigahertz signal that has time code, it has IFB audio, and it has transmitter remote control in it. So this is recording audio, this is receiving Zaxnet. It's also capable of broadcasting Zaxnet at a very low power level. Mm-hmm. And when I say low, I mean very low. Okay. Uh-huh. So, this transmitter by itself is quite unique. And probably one of the biggest things is that, something we pioneered, which is digital modulation. So on all of our transmitters, we transmit actual digital audio, ones and zeros. Mm-hmm. So, we're currently pretty much the only people that do that kind of thing. And what that does, it eliminates the distortion of FM companded wireless. And when I say companded, every wireless FM system out there is companded. Companders, do different things to the audio. Some of them sound better than others. I mean, there are very good ones, there are bad ones, but one way or another, there is distortion and a limit to the complexity of the audio that can go through these things because of the compander. When it comes to this, you end up with a transmission that is absolutely true to what you're putting into it because it is digital in its nature. So there's no compander, there's no anything going on in the audio. So what you put into the mic is what you get out of the receiver. Okay. So that's a very unique thing. Another unique thing is the Never Clip feature. NeverClip is something that we also have a patent on. It utilizes 2 A to D converters on every product.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so that with NeverClip, if you clip or if you would clip one A to D converter, you're not clipping the other one, and the system is able to take that audio, combine it together, and always put out audio that is not limiter distorted. It is basically extending the dynamic range by an extra 20 dB over having a single A to D converter. So the point to all of this is where if you would have a recorder or a wireless microphone that had a limiter, which all of them do effectively. If they don't, then they can clip, so that's not a good thing either. But this eliminates that distortion, so you will always get better sounding audio with a Zaxcom transmitter than any other transmitter out there, not because of the fact that it's digital modulation, but because the audio is done with NeverClip. And we have a RF channel that allows us to put through it about 120 plus dB of audio dynamic range. So what you end up with this system is something that you can, basically put on someone and they can be whispering or they could be screaming, and you're not going to have that type of limiter distortion or clipping distortion. And all of our wireless transmitters now have that. So as well as our recorders have that as well. Some of the other,
All right, so then you have the transmitter that records. You have all of the technology that's built into it. You have ZaxNet, which is a completely different network that's also integrated into the transmitters and the receivers.
Yes.
And the recorders. What receivers mate with that transmitter?
Well, we have a couple of them, and which one you use is dependent upon what you're trying to do. One of our most common receivers is called the QRX 200. And QRX 200 receives 2 separate transmitters, and this receiver outputs 4 channels of audio, which is why it's called QRX, Q for a quad. On the back of it, you'll see that there are 2 TA5 connectors, and those connectors output the 4 channels of audio. The audio can come out as analog or AES. So when you use this receiver in a sound bag, you cut the number of audio cables in half versus receivers that only put out analog audio.
Which is perfect also because there's a whole bunch of digital cameras, cameras that take digital audio.
Well, that's right. All of our receivers do output analog and digital, so you're able to put it onto the camera or put it into a recorder and have, pure digital audio, eliminating A to D and D to A conversion between boxes, which helps to keep the audio as pristine as it can be. The important thing here is that when you use AES audio, you have none of the typical lineup issues that you have when using analog. Because if you took this receiver and you plugged it into a camera, the first thing you'd want to do is you'd want to put out tone, and you would want to set up the camera inputs. If you're using AES audio, the level is all absolutely predefined. You can skip that stage. That's an important thing. So the chances of you having good audio in a camera is much better with AES than it is with analog.
Now, can you do digital end-to-end? Do the transmitters accept AES audio?
We have one transmitter that does accept AES audio.
All right.
Yeah, that's called the TRX 742. TRX 742 is a pretty impressive unit in that this is the only plug-on transmitter that will work with mono phantom-powered mics with the 3-pin XLR. It will also work with AES 42 digital microphones. It will also work with stereo analog microphones, phantom-powered. And you can switch out the cone on this unit so that you can have your 5-pin XLR and then quickly just undo 2 screws and put on a 3-pin to run it with a mono microphone.
Now, what's the frequency bandwidth of this in terms of UHF spectrum?
Well, this will run, this works over about 100 megahertz range. So that one model would go from 512 megahertz up to around 600, and then the other model would go from about 600 megahertz to 700 megahertz.
Which, as we're learning, that sounds like the first model would be the one to invest in long term.
Well, I can't speak about exactly what will happen, but I think it's fair enough to say that the 600 to 700 megahertz range is most likely going to go away.
Right.
In this country, anyway. I mean, there's users worldwide that will be using 600 to 700 megahertz for many years.
Yes.
So.
And would you use that as a camera hub? I mean, could you, if you wanted to go digital out of your mixer, digital into the camera, could that be your transmitter for the camera?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The other thing about this is it does output mono and stereo. So if you plug in a stereo mic, it's capable of sending 2 channels of audio on a single RF carrier along with timecode.
Sure.
Because any of our transmitters can be timecode generators as well. And these transmitters take the timecode and transmit the timecode embedded with 1 or 2 channels of audio.
And so where's the timecode in on these?
Well, these do not have an actual timecode in, even though you can jam the timecode through the audio input connector. The way these work is that you can set them up so that when you switch them on, they can listen to a ZaxNet signal and jam the code automatically. So there's a lot of shows out there where they use our transmitters where they just set up a ZaxNet transmitter, they switch the unit on, and without even having to think about it, these things are automatically jammed. They are subframe accurate. So the internal recording on these is jammed, and then the transmission to the receiver is also, jammed from this, which was jammed from the central timecode generator that is broadcasting ZaxNet.
Got it.
So what you get with our wireless is you get built-in timecode distribution across the system.
But some of the receivers, for example, have timecode outs and or timecode ins.
Well, that's right. This receiver, a new one that we just came out with called the RX200, this receiver happens to have a timecode output. So if you're going to use this with something like a DSLR or a broadcast camera, it will output 2 channels of audio, analog and digital, AES or analog, and it will also broadcast timecode from the BNC connector, and you can connect that up to a camera.
Wow.
Yeah, so this little guy does a lot, and also it is battery powered, and this receiver will run for 12 hours on 4 lithium batteries. Regular alkaline batteries. Batteries are analog, aren't they?
Yeah. Wow.
Regular alkaline batteries would go for approximately 7.5 hours. So the running time you get on this is extraordinary. I mean, you can battery this in the morning, and you're done for the day.
Yeah.
Especially if you turn it off during lunch. So it's really quite, quite good, and it's relatively inexpensive compared to other solutions as well. Because when you think about it, with one receiver, you're getting 2 channels of audio, and you're getting timecode. And the interesting thing about all of this, by the way, is the Zaxcom Wireless system has no intermodulation concerns.
Sure. So you can really stack things close together.
Yeah, you can put the receivers as close as the system allows, which is about 600 kilohertz channel to channel. But you don't have to have frequency coordination. You don't have to have computer programs. You don't have to worry about those things.
Wow.
I mean, that's just something we did from day one. We were able to design the receivers and the transmitters so that they, on the transmitter side, did not mix together in a way that was significant enough for a customer to have to have some sort of intermodulation map. So getting rid of the intermodulation concerns is a huge advantage to our system, and has been for quite a long time. So, okay.
Well, so does that have AES output as well? This receiver?
It does. Yes, all of our receivers contain AES output. So you can just, if the camera accepts it, you can just simply do that. What's that?
That's yours.
I was going to say, what are you doing here?
Well, I'm stealing all the water. I'm just clearing it for the camera. I'm spilling it on the table.
you're bad. You're just,
Yeah, I'm a menace.
they should keep you away from these things.
Well, that's right. I'm sure they will after today.
I'll advise them.
Good. And talk to me about the IFB system.
Well,
That's separate from all of this.
right. Well, you know what? See, we're sort of dancing around the big issue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
What is the big issue?
the big issue. It's big.
Uh-huh.
It's very big.
All right.
If you look at the world of basically production sound,
Mm-hmm.
and you look at wireless microphones, and you look at recorders, and you look at IFB, okay? These systems are all separate systems, okay? Yes, they connect together with wires and cables,
Sure.
but they don't work together. I mean, any more than they were designed to do. If you buy an FM wireless, a companded wireless, old school, I mean, that wireless will take basically one channel of audio and to get it from point A to point B. And that's it. If you look at a recorder, it'll record any number of tracks of audio, and that's basically it. If you look at IFB, you put audio into a transmitter, you get audio out of a receiver.
Mhm.
Pretty basic.
Yeah.
That's old school. We don't do that. Okay? What we do is we look at all of these things as one system, where the recorder works with the wireless, and the recorder works with the IFB. And we're able to send all kinds of things from one point to another, giving you features and abilities that you do not have utilizing other gear. And if you look at the performance of everything that we make, you will find aspects of it that are world class when you look at what they do versus other things, whether it's enhanced audio quality, whether it's excellent range in the wireless, whether it's the ability to, have the recording in the transmitter, to have audio delay in an IFB monitor, to have an IFB monitor that is also a time code generator with extreme accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
These things are all things that form a complete system. And that's the big picture. And if you break it down to the point where you say, okay, I'm a DSLR guy. What do I need? What can I do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or I'm a reality show person. That's what I do. Or I'm working on basically, shows like 60 Minutes or 48 Hours, and that's the kind of work I do.
Right.
Or you're the scripted kind of TV film guy. Okay. There's something for everyone that will not only enhance what you do, but make what you do add value to your customer, your client.
So give me an example.
Okay. So let's say you're working in DSLR world.
All right.
There's a lot of different things you can do with our gear. We have a little recorder, and this little recorder is called the ZFR 300.
Mm-hmm.
And not only is it just a recorder, but it has ZaxNet. So you're able to switch this unit on. It's going to record on the internal memory card that's in here.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to immediately receive time code and jam itself, so that if you put these on multiple people, what you have is a virtual multi-track recording that is time code synced to the camera. And in fact, many people that do DSLR kind of shows, and a show like The Island, let's say, is done purely with this product.
Uh-huh.
So that they just give this product to the talent puts it on in the morning, they take it off at night, and that's it. And because it's time code accurate, because it has never clip, it's a new way to do television production, and they're shooting that with DSLR.
Huh.
Now,
How do they? So they sync it up via the time code or
they
via
sync it up via the time code.
do you know what DSLR they're?
I don't know what DSLRs they use. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
but they sync it with the time code. I mean, you can't really sync it any other way, because I don't think that there's audio on the camera that would match any of these things. So you don't have two audio sources to compare.
Right.
So, but they don't have to do it that way. They do it via time code, and all they have to do is switch the unit on. But this is just one way to work.
Sure.
You know, if you're using these alone, that's fine. You can also utilize our links, meaning that if you have a small mixer recorder like our Max recorder, this recorder is by itself a great multi-track recorder, but it also incorporates inside a 2-channel transmitter with time code.
Uh-huh.
So-
And that 2-channel transmitter with time code will transmit to any of the receivers on the table.
Well, that's right. Any of the receivers on the table, it will broadcast to. So you can basically have this in the sound bag and have our little receiver here on the camera, and 2 channels of audio are going to come out of this along with the time code from here. So this is a great little system for a DSLR person.
Yep.
If you just wanted to do, let's say, transmission of audio to camera, you can use our stereo link, which is over here.
Yep.
So this is, again, a really neat product in that it's actually 2 transmitters in one. It's a stereo transmitter with time code, to hold it the right way. Again, broadcasting digital stereo, so it's really, the audio quality is just exceptional. And it can broadcast to this receiver that's on the camera.
Sure.
So just with this in the bag and this on the camera, you end up with 2 channels of audio and time code from sound bag to camera. And of course, in the sound bag, you can have anything you want. You can have just a regular mixer and plug that in here. When I say regular mixer, a non-recording mixer. You also have the ability to record a 2-channel backup in this transmitter. So the Zaxcom Camera Link gives you 2-channel recording, transmission to camera via UHF,
Sure.
as well as it has our built-in IFB 200 transmitter, meaning that this transmitter can also transmit to our IFB monitors. And we didn't talk about the IFB monitor. This IFB monitor can be used with any of this gear, and you could transmit with this from the sound bag and just give this to director, producer, whatever it is, so that they can monitor, with this unit, which is called the ERX2 TCD.
Got it.
This also has a built-in time code generator, so it's receiving time code from this unit, and it can output audio and time code to a camera.
That's perfect for DSLR.
It's perfect. So yeah, a lot of guys put this on DSLR and have the audio from here, which is much, much higher quality than FM IFB audio.
Sure. What sort of range is it?
Range varies quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, typically from sound bag to this outdoors, you'd be looking at about 50 feet. Indoors, that actually goes up to about 100 feet. This runs on 2.4 gigahertz. The range is a bit more limited than our UHF transmission.
Sure.
UHF transmission, I mean, we've done this across the Hudson River, over a half mile.
Right.
Which doesn't mean everyone gets to use it that way.
Uh-huh.
But typical transmission distance on our UHF stuff is 300 to 500 feet would be the maximum on that.
Great.
And I think, a misconception that's out there is people think that sometimes digital transmission range does not match analog transmission range. That's basically nonsense, and that's the polite way to put it. That digital transmission range is really excellent. When you're at the edge of coverage, things drop out differently.
Right.
I mean, an analog system will make kinds of funny pss, pss, pss kind of noises,
Right.
where this would have more of the in and out kind of it's either there or not. But the actual coverage range is pretty identical. The interesting thing about any of our digital transmission is when you're in the coverage area, the audio quality never changes. FM wireless always, depending upon conditions, interference, signal level, has different audio quality characteristics. It's very consistent when you're close in, but when you get to the fringes, you don't know exactly what you're going to get. But of course, with any of our systems, since all the transmitters are recording, that's not even something you really have to worry about so much for production sound.
Sure. What recorders did you bring?
Well, I brought 2 recorders today. Again, one is called the Max.
Right.
Max is a really neat recorder. Not that the other ones aren't, but with Max, the Max recorder records 8 channels of audio. It has 4 AES inputs. It has 4 analog inputs. All the analog inputs have never clip. And with that, you have 136 dB dynamic range in this product. That's an insane amount of dynamic range. You're going to clip the microphone before you're going to clip this. And for those people that are really not audio people, who are more cinematographers, who are trying to get going with audio, you can be a lot more carefree with this than you can be with units that have the typical limiter compressor kind of thing. And the other thing about the Never Clip with this dynamic range is that you are recording to ISO tracks and you're recording a mix track. The cool part about this is if you clip an input without Never Clip, you're going to have distortion on your ISO tracks.
Forever.
Forever. You're done.
Right.
Okay? So, you know, the typical type of limiter compressor mixer recorder does not help you solve those problems. And with this, those problems are non-existent.
Wow.
So it's really important, you know, to use Never Clip to its fullest extent to guarantee you, again, that you've got a perfect audio track so that post-production can really deal with it in a way that is meaningful.
Yes.
So-
We have an interesting question from Matthew Sonnenfeld. Would you consider joining SuperSlot and making a receiver for that form factor and system?
I wouldn't rule it out. I think with SuperSlot, there are advantages and there are disadvantages. I mean, the SuperSlot system, you know, yes, it unifies the type of slot thing that has been without a really clear standard, and for that, I think, you know, Sound Devices should be congratulated in doing that. But there are problems with the SuperSlot. If you look at the multi-coupler that's in there, it has to service multiple receivers. It has to be very wide. If you look at any of our receivers, for instance, these receivers tune 200 megahertz in range. Okay? And because they do that, we have a special filter that we designed which tunes with the receiver. So it's only letting 35 megahertz in.
Like a filter that tracks.
It's a tracking filter,
Yeah.
absolutely. So if you look at any of our receivers, they all have that filter. And we'll talk a little bit about the RX-12 in a moment. But, you know, I would feel uncomfortable with something that had a very wide input filter. And also the interesting thing about these filters is what does that filter look like? If you tell me that, okay, my filter is 100 megahertz wide, that's fine. But how many dB down is it 10 megahertz or 20 megahertz away from that 100 megahertz area? You know, we publish our bandpass online so that people know that outside of this 35 megahertz window, when you're like 10 megahertz outside of that, you've already dropped down about 20 dB.
Which is, in the crowded RF environment, a huge asset.
Well, it's essential because if you don't have a good input filter, then you can key up a walkie-talkie at 470 megahertz,
Right.
and you could wipe out the front end
Sure.
of your multi-coupler.
Right.
And, you know, again, while for some people this may be something that, you know, works out very well, for other people it will not be a good thing. So, you know, making a receiver to fit into that kind of application, I'm not ruling it out. If we do make a slot-in receiver, I mean, there are more choices to use it in than, you know, the super slot that exists. In fact, Ambient is coming up with a slot for the Aria camera, Alexa. Yeah, they're coming up with a slot for that. So I'm not gonna rule that kind of thing out. But it wouldn't exactly be my first choice.
Okay.
I think the interesting part about that is we do have our own basic kind of solution, which I think is, you know, really quite good. You know, again, SuperSlot is kind of limited by the fact that it is for 3 receivers.
Sure.
We make a product called the RX-12. RX-12 actually has the ability to have plug-in receivers and they plug in quite easily.
Wow.
And yeah, these receiver modules, the antenna is on the back, and the multi-connections are on the back. So you just plug one of these things in, and it allows you to receive two separate transmitters.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do frequency scans here. We can easily control these receivers. When you plug it into a Nomad, and again, this is all part of our system approach, when you plug it in, if you change the receiver frequency,
Yeah.
it changes the transmitter frequency on the Talent.
Because of the back channel provided by Zaxnet.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
Zaxnet is broadcasting the remote controls to the transmitters, so that changing any of these things will change the transmitters.
Got it.
The coolest thing is if you have 12 channels of wireless loaded, and you come onto a location and you want to refreak 12 receivers and 12 transmitters, you do a frequency scan, you tell the system, which number of transmitters and receivers you want to refreak, you press one button, you've refreaked 12 systems
Wow.
in approximately 3 or 4 seconds.
Wow.
If you try to do that, especially with things on Talent, you could be running around for a half hour trying to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Zaxnet is amazing at those kind of changes, and you can also change transmitter gain right from here, which is pretty amazing.
All through Zaxnet.
All through Zaxnet, yeah. I mean, when we talk about what the recorders do, I mean, our most flexible recorder is the Nomad. Nomad has a new cart-based controller called Oasis, which we're not going to go into right now.
Uh-huh.
I believe there'll be a separate video on that at some point very close.
Very,
to
very
now.
soon, I hear.
Very
yes.
soon, yes.
Uh-huh.
Maybe sooner than we all know.
Uh-huh.
But Nomad is our current top-of-the-line recorder. It's available as a 12-track recorder and has a built-in Zaxnet transmitter. So for those people that do, again, the 60 minutes, 48 hours kind of thing,
Yep.
the film TV recording, you can put this on a sound cart, you can put this in a sound bag, you can go between the two. And with this, you're transmitting the Zaxnet signal, so you're broadcasting IFB audio directly from here to here to the ERXs. You're broadcasting remote control to all the transmitters, so they're receiving time code. And you could actually dial the preamps on the knobs of Nomad, or you can control it through a menu. We actually have a patent on that as well.
And that's controlling the gain of the transmitter.
That's controlling the actual gain of the transmitter.
Wow.
So if you're in the middle of a scene and the Talent starts to yell and the transmitter gain is too high, there's nothing you can do about that except have distorted audio from the transmitter. With our system, in the middle of the shot, you're able to adjust down the preamp gain in the transmitter, and you're able to go. Other things that it can do, we have something called Power Roll, and Power Roll basically allows you to, when you go and record on the Nomad, it raises the power of the transmitter, the RF power, from 50 to 125 milliwatts.
Wow.
So that you're saving battery energy when you're not in record.
When it's not critical.
When it's not critical. And the moment you drop and record, you get about 3 dB more RF gain to ensure that that signal has a better chance of getting through. So it's, those are some of the things that it can do. And of course, if you refreak a receiver and transmitter pair from Nomad, this will automatically change frequency.
Right.
So, but this guy, I mean, it has 6 mic line inputs, again, all with never clip. It has a touch screen that allows you to, excuse me, not a touch screen, let's try that.
Right.
It's not a touch screen.
It's an LCD screen.
It's an LCD screen with a graphical user interface
Sure.
that is very intuitive
But
and
there
easy
will
to
be a
use.
touch screen out for it.
Well, yeah, there's a product that we're now starting to ship called Nomad Touch.
Right.
And the Nomad Touch is a similar piece of software to our Oasis graphical user interface that is a touch screen. And it can go in a sound bag and provide you a really, really intuitive, colorful interface to go out and mix with. So,
Nice.
yeah, but I think that, ultimately with the Nomad, if you're, again, going out to do a 60 minutes kind of thing, maybe doing a reality show, you're able to take this unit, you're broadcasting time code to the packs, you're controlling their power,
Right.
and you can also have the packs go into record and stop in a way identical to when this goes into record and stop, so that you can have identical segments and identical metadata.
Because metadata is shared via.
Well, that's
This
right.
thing.
It's broadcasting time code to those things. It's broadcasting track names to those things.
Right.
So you've got all of that in the transmitters, including the synchronized time code. So what you can bring in at the end of the day is you can give them the media from here, but you can also give them the recording cards right out of the transmitters.
Wow.
And I will show you that the card goes right into the top of the transmitter. There's a little white plug in this one. We just recently came out with colored plugs, by the way.
Nice.
So there's 8 colors to kind of get you going. So you can easily identify who's wearing what transmitter
Smart.
from the plugs.
Yeah, very smart.
Yeah, and of course we color coordinate everything here. Well, this this one doesn't have it actually, but there's little stickers for the knobs, so that all works out very nicely. But you're broadcasting the time code, you're broadcasting IFB audio right from here. And the cool part about the IFB audio is you can go into the routing in here and you can make up a specific IFB mix, that goes right from this. So if you're going to play back and the director says, well, I want to hear this track or that track, you can play that track back for the director, right through the IFB system. And another interesting factoid on the IFBs are they have built-in delay, because monitor delay, I mean, if I'm a director and I'm looking at a monitor, maybe my monitor is 3, 4, 5 frames out versus
And
picture.
that's because it goes through a wireless signal, and there's some latency with that, and some latency with
There's
the
all
conversion.
kinds of latencies when it comes to
But it could be,
cameras.
3 to 4 seconds, 3 to 4 frames, and sometimes
Well,
it's
yeah,
in it more.
and one delay does not fit all, because if I'm looking directly at the action, I don't want a delay on my monitor.
Right.
I want it as live as it can be, but if I'm looking at a monitor that has that delay, I want it. So you're able to easily set the delay on these things.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really quite nice how that's built into the system.
Yeah.
So, IFB wise, the IFB is totally tied into the system, with time code and with the ability to, again, delay the audio on a person by person basis, eliminating those types of problems of having to supply different delays to different people.
Wow.
And of course, the transmission is digital. And if you compare this to the FM style of IFB transmission, there is no comparison in audio quality of the IFB that we provide with what's out there at this point. So,
Sure. No, it's amazing.
well, thank you. It's, again, there's so many ways to work with this gear that, I like to think that I could say, okay, if you're a DSLR person, then, whether it's just, the individual recorders,
Right.
whether it's a camera link by
Or-
itself,
Or even an IFB receiver.
or even an IFB receiver. Exactly. You can have the IFB receiver. You can have our dedicated IFB transmitter. That's another way to go.
Sure.
There's a lot of ways to go there. For, again, the 60 minutes kind of 48 hours, person, a Nomad is a great recorder. Using it with our camera links is a great thing. When I say camera links, I mean a link transmitter and one of our standard receivers like the QRX. We also make a receiver called the QRX 235, which actually this is the QRX 235 right here. This has a built-in IFB transmitter. So the IFB 200 is built into this. So if this is on the camera, you broadcast 2 channels of audio and time code to this, and then this can broadcast the IFB monitoring to the director producer.
Sure.
So this forms a really neat little system where you can use the 2-channel link transmitter to transmit from your bag to the camera, and then the camera can broadcast the IFB to everyone standing around the camera, which is ultimately the most sensible thing you can do, because the director producer, they're not going to be away from the camera.
We're close to the camera. The camera's up high.
Exactly.
That's a good point of transmission.
Right. So you've got really good range from the stereo link out to the camera, and then the camera's receiving the audio and rebroadcasting to director producer. And you can also hand this to the script supervisor so that they have monitor audio.
Sure, with
And-
time code.
Right, and they have the time code. In fact, there's even a time code hold key right on here. And with that time code hold key, the script supervisor can do their logging with this.
That's great.
Yeah, so again, it's, there's so many ways to do it.
All right, I want to get through some questions here. Let's see. Radoff says, we all know about the patents. All right, thank you. And he also says, can you use touch with Mix 8 at the same time? Is it going to be wireless?
It is not going to be wireless for a very specific reason. Wireless doesn't always work. I mean, if you're in situations where 2.4 gigahertz gets wiped out, which can happen and does happen.
Yeah.
I mean, there's many products out there that have been, put out there as wireless control links that at the wrong time don't work. So, will we consider that at some point? Possibly. Right now, it's hardwired, and we're happy it is. I do realize that there are people that want that kind of control, and we do actually have a wireless solution for that. We have something to remote control our wireless system, and let's see here. And I didn't exactly. Let's see. That's Movie Slate. Yeah, I wasn't set up for this, but we have an iOS application that lets you remote control the wireless. And that basically plugs into our QRX235. And QRX235 would basically take the commands from this over its Bluetooth Wi-Fi transmitter and allow you to remote control our wireless system. So we do have some way to do that wirelessly.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but as far as the touch interface for the Nomad, that is a wired interface.
It's a wired interface, and can you use the touch with the Mix 8 at the same time?
Not currently, but we are working on a solution for that. Yes.
All right. I want to go back. All right, I'll get to some questions in a minute.
Now let's talk about patents.
Well, we all know about the patents.
No, there's more. God, I'm just joking.
All right. Well, I'm sort of curious. I don't know. Jeff Wexler seems sort of sore that I'm so curious about personal stuff. I'm sort of curious about personal stuff. I feel like we've seen you pitch these products a million times. I don't know. I'm curious. I want to go back to Broadway Video when you showed that invention that didn't exist at Broadway Video. What was that like for you? What did your boss say at that point?
Well, at that point, I wasn't working there. I mean, I left to go do
to form Zaxcom.
That's right.
That must have been a huge risk. Like, how did you?
Well, it was a risk, but then again, I had everything to gain and very little to lose. I had food, clothing, and shelter.
And you were young.
Yeah. So I was like 26. And
so
that's
literally
what I
out
did.
of your parents' garage it started.
Well,
Or at this point, had you moved out?
No, I was probably still in my bedroom, but yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that's how it kind of started.
That's incredible.
I mean, it's not an uncommon story. I mean, it's not like Apple didn't start in a garage or HP didn't start in a garage.
Right. I mean, those are exceptional.
Yeah, I mean, not that, I can...
No. I'm saying that
Not
it's an
comparing.
unusual. It's definitely it's ballsy. It's unusual.
You know what?
It's
I
not the
think,
path of like you could have gone to work and designed. You could have designed hardware for HP.
as Warren Buffett said, it's what I was wired to do.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he was wired to do financial stuff. I was wired to wire,
Yeah.
if I may.
That and maybe that is a true measure of success, is to be successful at what you're wired to do.
It could be. I mean, the lucky part is right now, I mean, the only people I answer to are the customers.
Mm-hmm.
and I enjoy what I do every day, and that's important.
What sort of like when you look in the crystal ball, and obviously Zaxcom has products in the pipeline that you can't talk about, or for competitive reasons don't want to talk about.
No,
But
because I can't kill everyone out there.
But in terms of like trends of the industry, like when you were working for Broadway Video, would you ever have guessed that there would be a company that would rent via mail orders DVDs and that would represent a significant income stream for a large percentage of your customer base?
Wait a minute. People rent DVDs via mail order?
Well, I'm
When did
saying,
that
in other
happen?
words, I'm saying all those years ago, to think that there would be this company called Netflix that would then turn around and be a content provider. I mean, in other words, the
I
industry
think-
is changing in ways that are nobody could have predicted. What are some of the trends that you see going forward?
You know, I like to think that I'm only an expert in my area. I mean, if I look at that kind of thing, I can give you an answer, but I think it would basically be bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you ask me, you know, where I think, you know, our industry is going,
Yes.
or the products we build, you know, that I can answer.
Where do you think our products are going, our industry?
Well, I think recording and wireless transmitters is going to be essential on every production, because since the frequencies are effectively going away, you know, how are you going to get audio from point A to point B without a guarantee of interference?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is, unless you're in a very controlled environment, you're not going to.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, when you look at the solutions that we've come up with, I mean, we're in a very good position because we have these recording transmitters, so that if you're producing a TV show and you're not using a recording transmitter, you're kind of rolling the dice. You know, so, you know, we want to make sure that, you know, with what our customer base does, that we offer a solution that is going to, you know, not effectively, but practically guarantee you that you're going to capture the audio that you went out to capture, and you're giving your customer files, not excuses. And that's kind of, you know, what we're trying to do. I mean, I had an idea to come up with multi-track audio recording when we came up with the Diva for production sound. You know, I said, this is something we have to do. And, you know, looking ahead, I just thought to myself, how are we going to break into this? We are not going to be able to convince people in the days of FAT16 and, you know, ancient computer technology by today's standards that we could do this reliably. And we had to look ahead and figure out, you know, what we had to do to come up with a file system that was going to be robust enough to work. And that's why we came up with our MARF system.
Sure.
So looking, you know, taking that and looking ahead, I mean, I'm trying to figure out what's important for the sound cart and what's important for the sound bag. The thing that I know for certain is that the type of product that we built in the past, which was a Diva that was, you know, a multi-track Diva, which was, you know, 8 tracks, 16 tracks, 8 inputs, whatever it is not the right product to build going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at, you know, what's necessary for a sound cart and necessary for a sound bag, there's no single solution that's great. If you're going to build a product that's going to be great for a sound cart, it's going to be wrong for a sound bag. It's going to be too big, too heavy, too power hungry, too many connectors on every surface,
Right.
you know, and probably too expensive in order to be the right product for the sound bag. There's great products for sound bag right now, Nomad, Max, that, you know, are designed for that application. And then you've got, you know, things that you need to do for a sound cart, which is more inputs, more outputs, more tracks, more interfaces. You need a proper control surface with faders that are properly spaced. You need something that's not too big, not too heavy.
Right.
You have all of these concerns that you need for a sound cart. So what we've tried to do is look ahead and say, okay, what worked yesterday isn't going to work as well in the future, because it's going to be a compromise in one place or the other, or both.
I mean, I think that's right. For me, for what it's worth, I see that the line between cart and bag are going to blur, and that you really need to be able to offer a solution that can go from one to the other seamlessly, so that you have huge feature films, for example, that need tiny recorders in addition to the sound card.
Well,
And you have huge feature films that where the mixer needs to be able to go over the shoulder at a moment's notice and not have to worry about switching stuff around.
Well, right, and going over the shoulder at a moment's notice doesn't mean completely taking your recorder off your cart.
No.
That's the last thing you're
No,
going to
you
do.
can't. That you
can't.
don't have time for
Right.
that anymore.
I mean, anyone that's doing feature work is going to have their cart set up
Yep.
and their bag set up. Not like, it used to be when you took your Nagra, you took your DAT machine
Sure.
because they were expensive and they were easy to unhook because there was only 2 channels and you took that from one place to another. That's not how it's going to be.
Right, and it used to be that was out of the ordinary, and you planned for it, and you even had some time, and then the time went away, and now there's just no planning at all. You're just expected to be able to
Right. So
to run.
Right. So our idea is that you'll have your bag set up, you'll have your portable set up, whether it's DSLR set up. I mean, in our case, you can even have your boom pole set
Mm-hmm.
up. You can take your boom pole, you can switch that on, and with this plugged into your boom pole is a recorder.
Right,
So you can go out and record Nat sound
right.
and bring that back and hand the card to the sound mixer and say, here's your sound.
But also, if the director who has already decided not to have a tow vehicle, just the actor's self-drive, if he decides or she decides, let the actor self-drive from 10 blocks away, because the camera now fits in the car as well,
Right.
you're covered also,
Well, you are covered
if
because
you have recording wireless.
right, you can just put the wireless on them and you can just go. So in fact, I saw recently there's a really neat DPA mount that allows you to take our stereo transmitter, well, this transmitter,
Uh-huh.
and just put this down and have 2 little microphones coming out of it, and your car rig is done.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
amazing. Do we know about that?
You should know about these
Yeah,
things. Peter.
I should know about these things.
Gotham Sound, totally connected. Not sure.
Well, all right. That's amazing.
Yeah, so come on, look at JW Sound.
I do.
It's there.
Oh, that's great. All right, well, I'll fix
Yeah, there's a memory card that plugs into the top of this. I don't know if we can see it, but it kind of plugs in right here. So this is, again, another recording
Sure.
transmitter. And you know what? With our products, this is another thing. It's a thing where since everything records, you're able, people can offer their clients recording in all of these products and end up saying, here's something that's billable. So when you use Zaxcom Wireless as a sound mixer, you're actually making more money than you are using traditional wireless without the recording, because that recording is valuable. The content on that card, people are willing to pay for, and they ask for it.
Mm-hmm.
So using Zaxcom Wireless with recording is not only something that lets you sleep at night, it's something that allows you to earn more money.
Well,
So the financial part
I
of
hope
it
so. I hope
is
so.
good.
I'm not sure that that's true. I mean, I'd throw it out to the group.
I will trust me. It's absolutely true.
I would throw it out to the group.
It's true.
Will producers pay more for Zaxcom Wireless, or will it just make you more employable for working more efficiently? I mean, I think that's sort of the payoff.
Well, that is certainly an aspect of it, but I've gotten more than enough people who have told me that, I've read online that, they're able to bump their rate up because of the recording in the cards.
Sure. Okay, fair enough.
And also if you send out a boom person to do recording, their rate is bumped because they are now recording.
Uh-huh.
So, there's no dispute that using Zaxcom Wireless is able, it's able to pay for itself much more quickly than other systems that don't have the recording capability.
That's great. I want to get to questions. We've blown way past our hour time, which was arbitrary anyways, but we're quarter past. Are we getting individual power state control anytime soon?
Individual
Power, I guess, of the transmitters. Like to be able to, is that, Rado, is that right? To be able to control the RF output power of individual transmitters?
It's done as a group through Powerroll, and when it comes to any time soon, I don't have an answer for that.
Okay, fair enough. Wow, these are coming in fast and furious. Is there a plan to integrate ambient time code into Zaxcom recorders?
There's no need to integrate ambient time code. Ambient time code is just time code. It's ambient time code is like Coke or Pepsi.
Well, I think, to be fair, I think maybe what they mean is ACN.
Oh, that's happening. Yeah, we showed at IBC the ACN working with Diva 32 and Oasis.
That's
So,
great. That's cool.
Yeah, no, it's a really cool feature, and it's something that we are integrating with ambient
So
right now.
for me, that is incredibly heartening to hear that you guys are working with ambient, ambient's working with you. I think that production sound benefits and production in general benefits the more open standards there are and the more cooperation there is.
Right.
So this is good.
Yeah, no, we're working with them. We're working with Movie Slate.
Yeah, and Time Code Buddy.
Well,
Through Movie Slate.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
This is great. All right. Is it stable for transfer? Sorry, Rada, if I don't understand what you're asking.
There was this guy asking?
Baldev, will you have any future products that offer Genlock?
As in video output, I assume.
Video sync, yeah.
Yeah, no, we're not doing that. Basically, the world at this point is moving away from that.
And Baldev, I assume Genlock would be mainly for 3D applications, is that right? And that's the only reason I think now you would do
Yeah,
it.
I don't know.
All right.
Assuming, I'm sure he's talking about camera Genlock, and all of our AES inputs have sample rate conversion,
Mm-hmm.
so there's no reason to lock the recorders to
Right.
anything.
Right.
Yeah, they all run asynchronous.
Interesting. 3D rigs, Baldev says, yes.
Yeah, fair enough. 3D rigs. Okay.
So no, no
Yeah.
Genlock.
Where's was it Baldev?
Baldev, yeah.
Where are you located, Baldev?
All right. Well, he gets back to us. We have. Will Zaxcom make a tablet holder like seen in the Touch demo? I have inside knowledge about that tablet holder.
Oh, do you?
I think you should publish the plans for that tablet holder.
I could do that. There is one being made by another distributor. Audio department is making
Good,
a holder, and it's really nice, and it's in production.
All right.
In fact, you can call the audio department in Burbank and
Gene, yeah.
Gene.
Yeah.
Gene's a good man.
Yep.
And I'm sure you'll carry that through
Sure.
his
Absolutely.
sound
Sound
guys.
Guy Solutions.
Yeah. So, all
but
good.
you have you 3D printed one, are you right?
No, I didn't 3D print it. I cut it on our laser
Laser cutter. All
laser
right.
cutter. Yeah, and that was kind of a Saturday project, kind of something I just like to do.
All right.
I make all kinds of crazy things with our laser. Well, we laser engrave everything now.
Uh-huh.
And it's a 30-watt laser, so it'll cut through like almost a half-inch of wood.
Do you put your evil scientist lab coat on when you do that?
Nah, I saved that.
All right. Matthew Sonnenfeld, I once lost a job covering for a day that required Zaxcom transmitters. It was a cop reality, potentially dangerous, needed the recording for safety. I could not be there physically. Yeah, so
Fair enough.
that's interesting. And actually, Comedians in Cars is a show that we put together. The director, Jojo Pennybaker, is a friend of mine, and he said, look, Jerry Seinfeld is going to take a comedian in a car, and they're going to drive. What do I use? And I said,
Right.
Zaxcom transmitters. There's nothing else.
But of course.
Baldev from the UK.
From the
way.
UK.
All right,
Okay.
fair enough. All right, so I think if there are no more questions, I do think we have to wrap it up. This is a record for
Is it?
the longest we've stayed in this room that I haven't fallen asleep.
But there's so much more.
well, what
Actually-
would you like to? Is there anything you'd like to?
Well, I guess ultimately, again, in talking about the different applications, the scripted world, right now, we have the Oasis for this, which is a great panel. It'll be a separate video for that.
Yep.
But again, on a sound card, being able to just have your control surface and have input trims that could either be input trims of the preamp of Nomad or directly control the preamps of the wireless transmitters,
Right.
is definitely you know, it's definitely something that allows the integration of the system.
There's no
So-
other company, so even companies that have a back channel to their wireless, which I'm thinking of Shure and maybe Sony's new system can have a back channel.
There's no one that
There's
ties
no one that
the
can-
mixers
Right.
in. So just, I mean, there's a lot of little things out there, but there's nothing that really ties these systems together. I mean, if you want to look at different ways of, you know, connecting, or you want to look at, you know, mechanical devices that streamline things, that's one thing.
That's right.
Okay, and I think there's a clear distinction between products that enhance the ability to mount something or wire something that are by themselves good, but yet do not provide any extra ability, anything that the customer, the client will see. And if you look at Zaxcom stuff, and you look at, you know, the ZaxNet and the remote control and, you know, the transmission of time code, all of these things, and the list is pretty long, these are all things that are value added to both the sound mixer and the client. And I think that that's where we excel. And, you know, as I recently said online, Muppet Labs is definitely open. So, you know, we are working on the next, you know, whatever it happens to be. And, you know, you're going to see things from us that are, you know, quite interesting and I think quite amazing.
We can't wait.
So, well, we'll see.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Peter.
On that note, we will see you next week. I have things to read. Like I said, we will not see you next week because we're moving. I don't know if everybody's heard. We're moving to Long Island City, which is about 6 miles from here, 5 miles due east. We're very excited about it. Bigger space.
Are you going to be on that bridge?
We're dangling from the bridge, actually. Actually, I'm personally moving to the tram that just goes back and
Are
forth
you?
between Manhattan and Roosevelt Island. And so we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you very, very much. This video, as well as others, are on vimeo.com/Gotham
They're going
Sound.
to rename that to the Gotham Sound Bridge.
That's right.
Ed Koch is dead, you know.
Don't.
Poor
That's
Ed.
sad.
I
That's
like
sad.
it.
Yeah,
I liked him.
Ed is dead. Thank you.